All right, so lots of new offers going out there with seemingly a focus on wide receiver and running back. Let's talk about that a little bit.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, HSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. I'll tell you about Game Time here in just a little bit. Thank you for being here every single day. You everydayers, thank you for making this your first listen. And you newbies, hey, welcome aboard. We love you all equally. Not really. We love the everydayers a little more, but you'll get there. So, Jimmy, Alabama is offering seemingly a lot of new running back and wide receiver targets. Now, of course, everybody, when you're talking about recruiting, everybody loves to talk about, okay, well, who are we going after quarterback-wise? Of course, the Jared Curtis thing is out there. We're not going to get into that. There's also Garrett Nussmeier's brother, Colton. How about the Wild West names of the Nussmeiers?
Colton
like and Garrett.
What if it's because Dad was a cowboy, Dallas Cowboy?
Good point. Maybe not. Probably not. But, you know, then there's some other guys that are out there for Alabama. There heavy dose of offers recently, including guys like, and look, these are new names even to moi, who keeps up with recruiting a good bit. Ethan Feaster, Dakota Garant, and Trenton Yancey. Wow. Okay. I like these names. I mean, those are some grade A names. Feaster, of course, is from Texas. Dakota, and I'm saying Garant for right. He is from Michigan. And, you know, Michigan's been putting out some talent lately, so I love getting in that area. And then another one from Texas is Trenton Yancey. All three of those are wide receivers.
Well, my favorite name so far there's Sincere Johnson, who we talk about quite a bit. We talked about him yesterday. My favorite name in recruiting so far that's so Alabama, and it is a guy that may be a bit of a gump, which is good news, but the offensive lineman from Georgia, Bear McWhorter, which sounds extremely Alabama. I mean, I don't know if maybe one day we'll recruit a kid named Saban Dreamland. You know, but until that guy comes along, Bear McWhorter might be the most Alabama name. And he's an offensive lineman whose stock is rising, nice offer list. He loves Alabama. That's something that could happen, kind of an interior guy. I would compare him to, just because it's recently on our minds here, because we just signed him, he's a Mal Waldrop type. But, hey, if you're going to sign like 4 offensive linemen, you're not going to sign 4 Michael Carrolls. I do think there has to be some level of realism, particularly in this NIL world where there's budgets for one. But, you know, if you sign a 4 offensive line class, you want the best class in the country. You kind of did what Alabama did last year on the offensive line, right? 2 5-stars, which is fantastic. Not everybody's got that, you know, and Jackson Lloyd and Big Mike Carroll. And then, national top 250, top 300 guy like Micah DeBose. And then your sleeper, your guy that's not ranked as high, but a guy that there's a lot of reason to be high on, and then that's Mal Waldrop. To me, that's sort of the makeup of a great offensive line class, and I think Bear McWhorter would be that Waldrop type guy. You know, in this class, center, guard, clearly has a very high floor. You know, he's going to be pretty good. Now, is he going to be great enough to start? You have to get into it to see. But no, those wide receiver names Luke was talking about earlier, I do think right now, Luke, there's a difference between an offer and a take. Okay, and I know that most fans realize that, but an offer is sort of like, welcome to our pecking order. We are seriously recruiting you. We may even take you when you decide to commit. We definitely want you in camp. Other offers are just takes, and I'll say that to say, I think today, Tristan Keys from Hattiesburg, he could commit to Alabama in the next 5 minutes. That would be awesome. CD
Morgan.
I was about to call him CD Benjamin Russell. CD Morgan from Benjamin Russell.
Well, wouldn't that be something if that were his name and he were at Benjamin Russell?
That would be cool. That'd be like, be like Vanderbilt recruiting a kid whose name's Vanderbilt. That would be pretty good. But C.D. Morgan, he can commit to Alabama in the next 5 minutes. But because you got those two that are out there that really like Alabama, you have to be careful about taking other receivers. These guys that Luke's talking about that want to commit, well, you got to save room for Keys and Morgan for sure. You also don't want to take a bunch of wide receivers so that Keys and Morgan are like, I'm not going to sign with a place that signed up 5 receivers in my class. I'm not going to get enough attention. So when these offers are out there, keep in mind not all of them are takes. Some of the obvious ones are. And if Alabama's got a wish list at wide receiver right now, it would be headed by Tristan Keys and C.D. Morgan.
Okay, I just find this interesting. This will tell you something about the future focus of Alabama recruiting, and that it does lie with the wide receivers. The new offers as of the last couple of days: Colton Nussmeier at quarterback. There's one quarterback.
And he's a 27 guy for those.
Yeah, and some of these are 27 guys. I think some of these are 26 guys. It is sort of a mix. 2 27 running backs. Quintarius Gibson from Marietta, Georgia, and Asa Barnes from Martin, Tennessee. There's 2 running backs.
Asa Barnes, by the way, is a teammate of Ty Simpson's brother,
who's also awesome.
A long-term possibility for Alabama and everyone else. He seems to be really good and is another QB country product, of course.
Then, how about this? We have offered just recently, this isn't all of them, 15 wide receivers. Vance Spafford from California, Jalen Lott from Texas, Kenny Darby, interesting name, Ken Darby, from Bossier City, Louisiana, Braden Robinson from Texas, Jaden Warren from Texas, Mike Brown from Texas, Samorian Wingo from St. Augustine. Now, I can't help but at least wonder if he's somehow related to Ryan Wingo at Texas, just because that's a heck of a coincidence. And Wingo isn't a name like Smith or Johnson, but Ethan Booby Feaster. Look, anytime your name is Booby, I'm feeling for you.
Parents were fans of Friday Night Lights.
Feaster's from Texas. Mason Johnson Cook from Texas. Boy, a lot of Texas dudes. Dakota Garant from Michigan. Trenton Yancey from Texas. Braden Gordon, an athlete from Montgomery Academy in Alabama.
He's 27, right?
He's a 27 guy. Trey Moore from Texas. Bryson Wright from Florida. And Marcus Fakatu. Look, I'm just saying the word, y'all. Fakatu. And Lord have mercy, if this were a much more raunchy show, I would have a blast with that name.
Yeah, got to be careful with that one on air, Chris Stewart, should he one day pick Alabama. One thought that comes to mind, and again, so many of these are offers that aren't takeable. Hey, you can commit now. Some of them may very well be, but a lot of them won't be. I wonder if wide receiver is a spot where you got to offer a lot of kids because you anticipate a lot of transfer portal revolving door situation. Because at wide receiver, let's be honest, it's easy to measure who's happy at wide receiver by the amount of targets and receptions they're getting. So because you might have 10 wide receivers on scholarship, which, by the way, under 85 scholarships, 10, maybe 11 wide receivers is the number you're aiming for in terms of how many receivers should you have if you have an 85-man roster. Around 10 or 11. Well, not all 10 or 11 are going to be catching balls in the games every Saturday. As a matter of fact, probably only 2 or 3 will catch quite a bit, and maybe 2 or 3 others will catch a little bit, and the other guys aren't catching any balls at all. And those are the guys you have to expect to leave. What do we say here on the show all the time is there are 3 lists of players on your roster. Starters, the true freshmen who just got here, and everyone else. And people that are in the everyone else category are all subject to leaving at any time. If they're not starters or they didn't just get here, then they're subject to getting in the portal and leaving. That's the 3 lists that you got on a team these days. And wide receiver is one of those spots, right, where you can measure their happiness by receptions and targets. And if they just got here, they'll be a little patient, right, for like a year. But then that patience is going to go out the door, and they want to be catching balls and running routes and being a thing. And if they're not, they're going to leave. So wide receiver might be a position in this transfer portal age, Luke, where you kind of oversign knowing, hey, I'm gonna sign a bunch of receivers because I'm gonna lose a bunch of receivers.
Yeah, and let me say this, and this may not tie in directly to what you're talking about. Guy who listens to the show, buddy, super nice guy, sent me a DM last night.
Gotta be with a name like that.
Yeah. Did
Buddy?
I say his name?
Yeah, Buddy. That sounds like a good name.
No, just said a buddy.
Oh, I thought you said his name was Buddy.
No,
That's like having a guy whose name is Pal.
his buddy is name. His buddy is his name is Buddy Friendship. But no, he DM'd me last night, and again, this is going to sound so message boardy, and I want y'all to understand. I know this, but I also want y'all to understand that if y'all are like me, you've now read enough message board material to know how to sift through some truth and some falseness.
I'm
right?
I'm a message board fan, obviously.
Yeah. Well, what he sent me was just, hey, I don't know if you're hearing what I'm hearing, but I'm being given a lot of reason for optimism for the future about future recruiting, about how we approach it, about just about who we will probably end up with.
Uh-huh.
And he was incredibly vague. I understand this. And if you're listening to this going, well, why are you even telling us this? Because I have heard those same things from folks that maybe just won't tell me exactly what they mean because they need to leave it up in the air a little bit because nothing is certain, right? But I guess what I enjoyed getting was a little note from somebody that I know is a reputable guy saying, okay, I've found some newfound optimism. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that because there has seemingly been a twinge, a little waft of negativity around the program. And I think that
not in 4 will do that.
I think it's about to change, Jimmy. I think things are about to get positive again. And I just want everybody on the same page with that. Something we should all be on the same page about. And I ain't playing. And this is not something that I heard on a message board. Game Time's awesome. Game Time's awesome. Go to Game Time, download that app, use code Locked On College, 20% off that order. You can beat an egg. You may not beat an egg right now. They're pretty expensive. You can beat a bush, but you can't beat Game Time. And if you want to go to Game Time and use that code Locked On College, $20 off, go do it because you will love it. And look, I use it all the time. I used it for the Georgia game. I use Game Time once or twice a month. That's how often.
I'm a concert guy with Game Time. I'm constantly looking at Game Time for the best deal on concert tickets, and I track that. And they even send me emails going, "Hey, we recently saw you looking at the Luke Bryan show in Birmingham this summer. We saw you looking at that. Here's an email. We'll update you every week on that Luke Bryan show because you're obviously interested in it." That's a really cool thing that you get along with your Game Time app.
Yeah, I remember when you told me that Game Time sent you an email saying, "Hey, we know you're looking for front row seats to the Wiggles at Legacy Arena. We got them for you. Come on." So, they also threw in there.
I don't have kids. I don't really know what that is.
They also threw in there a caveat, a little asterisk that said, "It is weird you don't have kids and you're going, but so be it."
We're copying this email to the FBI.
But anyway, go check out Game Time. That's the other thing about Game Time. They won't snitch on you. So Game Time. What time is it? It's Game Time. All right. So Ari Wasserman, again, it's early. Hey, a lot of the national writers don't have a ton to do. We better come up with some content. Okay. So let's go ahead and put our college football CFP predictions out there. Well, Ari Wasserman has put his CFP predictions out there, Jimmy. And lo and behold, I didn't think that he would do it, but he's got Alabama in there.
He does. His partner in crime, Andy Staples, at On3. And they have a good show, by the way. I listen to it pretty often. Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman. You might not agree with them all the time, but hey, I'm an opinion guy in sports. Everybody that listens to this show knows I'm doling out opinions every day, almost all to do with Alabama football. I'm going to be wrong a lot because that's just the nature of when you have an opinion. It's okay to listen to these shows when you disagree with the opinions. You just hope that they're smartly formulated, even if it ends up wrong. And I think Andy and Ari are pretty good. So Ari did have Alabama. He's one of the few I've seen so far that has Alabama, and I think that's a reasonable projection. I'll tell y'all, as of today, I would include Alabama in a 12-team projection, but at the same time, when I see national experts that don't include Alabama, I get it. I don't get upset by that at all. I'm like, yeah, I get doubts about Alabama coming off of last season. But Ari did have Alabama. I thought Ari's was a little more chalkish than Andy Staples' projection. I thought Andy took a few more risks. But one thing that stood out to me, talking about the 12-team projection, Luke, is I sort of ripped on Andy Staples' 12-team projection for including Illinois. Ari did too. Ari had Illinois in there. Gosh, I guess I need to pay more attention to the Illini.
Yeah, now I'll say this. I both hate it when people go too far off the rails from chalk. I also don't like it when people go too chalk. I think there's a fine line. Look, case in point, I think it was yesterday. For Andy Staples, he had Illinois and South Carolina and LSU, and who else did he have that we were like? He had Tulane.
He had Tulane as his group of 5 team, and he had Oregon winning the Big Ten and not Ohio State, and he had BYU winning the Big 12. Which I think is a stretch, but I get it. I think
that one, I'm not going. The Big 12 is so nutty, I'm not even sure. But those 4, and there was another SEC team in there potentially.
South Carolina, Florida, Georgia.
Oh, Florida. There you go. So,
by the way, thanks, Luke, who listens to the show. Another Luke, a Luke fan of the show, good friend of mine. Luke let me know that Andy Staples was a walk-on offensive lineman at Florida, not a walk-on kicker, but he was a walk-on.
He doesn't look like an offensive lineman.
Yeah, he doesn't look like that. Is a former big ugly, but if
he was a walk-on, he was if he was an offensive lineman, he was walking on, but he was limping off because there ain't no way he held up very well. Okay, but now going back to what you said, see, I look at Ari Wasserman's, and it's look, the 8-9 game is Bama, Penn State at Penn State.
Got Alabama winning. Yes, Alabama
winning, and then Bama playing Texas. Alabama losing. I think that's, again, I'm not mad about that. I think that's fair. He also has Georgia, Illinois. I think Georgia, Illinois was also Andy Staples' pick. And then Georgia, Ohio State winning. He's got Arizona State, Oregon. Interesting because those are old rivals. And he has Oregon going in and playing Boise State, which I hope that in the matchup. And he has Indy, Notre Dame playing South Kakalaki. And then the second round, how about this? He'd have South Carolina taking on Clemson, which would be interesting. But so his SEC teams would be South Carolina, Georgia, Bama, Texas. Okay, I don't think he's too. I don't think he's too chalk, Jimmy. I don't. I think we're going to have to accept that people are going to put South Carolina in there more than we want. I think people are just sort of in love with the idea of South Carolina making it in there. Right. If I'm making a playoff, South Carolina's not getting in. Now, I'm not saying South Carolina's not going to be good. I'm just saying I'm going to have to see them do it before I believe it.
I'm more inclined to put LSU in over South Carolina. And I'm not inclined to put in either, but I would put LSU in before South Carolina myself. And I know this is going to sound nuts to people. Like I talk about how my opinions, people might not agree with them. I would take Garrett Nussmeier over Lenora Sellers, or at least next year I would. Maybe not 5 years from now in the future, because I think Lenora has a higher ceiling. But I think in terms of who would I trust to win a big SEC game, I would go with Nuss over Lenora Sellers myself. How about this? That Big 12, Josh Pate says this all the time. I couldn't agree more. It might be the most fun conference out there because who knows who's going to win that league. Everyone is good enough to win the league, though no one is good enough to win like the SEC or the Big Ten. It's all like a bunch of 7-5, 8-4 teams, in another league. But how about this? I think my sleeper pick to win the Big 12 next year might be Baylor.
I think that's interesting, and I think that's an interesting pick because they open up with Auburn. What a big game for both of them.
I like this stat that, boy, this flies over everybody's head all the time, like shocking. The quarterback that returns from last year with the highest QBR, the highest quarterback rating of returning quarterbacks from last year, Sawyer Robertson at Baylor. That's one of the stats behind my, hey, better watch out, the Baylor Bears. Plus, Aranda survived the hot seat a little bit and now might have his best team. He's pulling a Billy Napier type resurrection at Baylor, maybe off the hot seat and winning the Big 12. That'd be a good story.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So going back to these though, and that's, I want to go back to Andy Staples. I just think it makes you look, the whole thing look disingenuous and just falsifies it when you put in, I mean, I just can't imagine he really thinks that Florida and South Carolina and Illinois and Tulane, and there was one other one that I said in there that was like, what the, I can't remember his full, but see,
Probably,
if you just
BYU.
No, because the Big 12 to me is so generic. Like if the Big 12 each week, if two teams came out wearing one all white and one all black, you probably couldn't tell the difference in any of them. You know what I mean? They all look the same, and they just don't. The Big 12 doesn't have a personality right now. Now, if you want to say, well, what about Deion Sanders? He's the biggest personality in the sport. Fair, but I don't think his. Let's see how his team plays without Shedeur Sanders, without the Heisman Trophy winner. Once those two guys are gone, I'm going to be willing to bet they blend in just like the rest of the Big 12.
What an interesting quarterback battle they have there this spring between Caden Salter, who transfer portal there from Liberty, and Juju Lewis, hot shot 5-star freshman. That'll be interesting. And that quarterback position in Colorado can produce in that offense because obviously look what Shedeur did. Now, of course, he got to throw the ball to Travis Hunter and some other guys, but I think Colorado would be a fair pick to win the Big 12 based on the trend where what Deion inherited, how they won in year one, how they won more in year two. Now we'll find out. I mean, if they take another step forward, they probably win the Big 12.
Okay, Prize Picks is back with us, and the big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least two players' projections. And if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs one throw, one yard to win. And he only needs to throw 1 yard to win that pick. That's incredible. Pair that with one or more correct picks, and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board and selecting more for like Travis Kelce on receiving yards because he always seems to get more on that category, and more for a quarterback on passing yards, maybe on Jalen Hurts, who knows. Look, check out all the promos, all the promo tabs to tail any of the Super Bowl Sweet Millie Willie. Wait, what is this? Check out the promos tab to tail any of the Super Sweet Millie winners big game lineups. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to check that out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you pay your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, because you know what Prize Picks, you can run your game, yo. All right, so third segment, basketball time. The SEC sort of did what Jimmy and I thought we would do. Tennessee struggled with Missouri to begin with, eventually overpowered them. Now, what that does to the standings, it gives Alabama a 2-game lead on second place.
Yep. Cushion. No, I'm saying this is some cushion now for Alabama. Obviously, cushion for Auburn at the top, but Alabama and Auburn really separating themselves from the rest of the league.
Well, you need to separate yourself from that cough. So Florida's at 6-3, Texas A&M's at 6-3, Missouri's at 6-3, Bama, of course, 8-1, and Auburn at 9-0. The one thing that happened last night that probably a lot of people didn't pick, and Jimmy and I did, that Arkansas went into Texas and won. This is a team that's getting their act together. I can tell you this. They're going to be at full throat on Saturday night. ESPN, 7 o'clock. It's going to be a big deal.
7:30 was moved.
It was moved to 7:30.
Correct.
How late do they think I stay up?
This is not helpful to us old people, especially us old people who are sick. And obviously, I'm still fighting what I think is COVID, by the way.
But, okay, well, I can't get that via computer, can I, yet?
Maybe that's. I'm not sure. I'm not even 100% sure. I just
I'm
know I
close.
was exposed. I was exposed to COVID, and I feel terrible. So I'm quarantined up here, doing my locked on and not leaving the house.
Yeah, Jimmy, you can't die because we need you on this show. I can't die because you wouldn't have any idea how to operate the show.
Do the show. That's correct. We're vital. We're vital. This team, we're like we have
a symbiotic relationship.
It's a Batman Robin situation. You know.
But anyway, so Arkansas is going to be tough, y'all. And I mean, I think this was worst case scenario for Alabama that Arkansas won this game, because I would have rather Texas won, feeling like, okay, you know, we're still moving very well towards a tournament bid. I looked at ESPN today; they still have Texas kind of solidly in the tournament, but even after that loss. But see, they have to go to Vanderbilt, I think, this weekend. That ain't going to be easy.
No SEC road game is easy. None.
No. And then they play us on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, unless it was moved to like midnight or something, and you'll tell me that in a minute. But so Texas's schedule just got infinitely harder, and the Vandy and Bama games got infinitely more important. And I'm like, God, I would have rather they beat Arkansas so they have a little bit of comfort. You know, I don't want to go in there playing desperate teams. And conversely, for Arkansas, they've been desperate here for a few weeks now. So they're on desperation mode, but they're comfortable in desperation mode, it appears. Like, I watched them last night. They're not bad. You would have thought they were bad looking at their record. They're not bad. And so it's going to be a thing. I mean, we're better. We're 100% better. But the best team doesn't win all the time, especially on the road in SEC.
Yeah, you know, these next two road games at Arkansas and at Texas, I'm not saying Alabama should go 1-1 or 0-2. I'm not saying that. I think Alabama should go 2-0 because Alabama's better than Arkansas, and I think Alabama's better than Texas. But I would say that 1-1 would be a good result. I mean, if Alabama goes 1-1, I will think that was a good result based on these are tough games to win back to back. And heck, 0-2 would be troublesome because now you've got no momentum going into the Auburn game, and you're probably well behind Auburn now in the standings. So 0-2 would be sort of disastrous while also understandable. I mean, to me, Arkansas, the way they're playing right now, and Texas are both NCAA tournament teams. I would say beating someone that's going to the NCAA tournament on the road is by definition extremely difficult to do. But I'm just saying 1-1, I'm going to say is a good result if that's the way it plays out. But Alabama is certainly capable of 2-0 because they're just better. I think they're better than Arkansas. Texas. If it's on neutral floor or at Alabama, I would be saying, yeah, this is probably a 2-0 situation for Alabama. But it's on the road, and boy, these environments, especially the one at Arkansas, but both environments are going to be tough.
Arkansas is going to be geeked up, man. They're going to be geeked up.
Well, they're on fire for the first time since they hired Calipari. They feel they're really good, and the combination of those two things, it's going to be tough. And again, these late tips, which are bad for old people like me and Luke, but it's good for the students. Students tend to get louder the later. You know, those students at Alabama. You know, I live like on campus when I go to Tuscaloosa. Even on Thursday nights, you can be on the balcony. 10 o'clock, traffic starts because the kids start going out at 10. It boggles my mind.
That's when I'm getting up to head to the bathroom for the first time. Anyway, all right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Well, I don't know about tomorrow. We'll be back shortly with more, maybe after the Arkansas game if we can stay up that late. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.